I just found out my wife's affair with her boss, which I now know was to cover up a scheme to steal over $200, $0 from our house and estate. She's now threatening to sue me for half the inheritance, and I have no idea how it all spiraled out of control. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife, Emily, turned out to be nothing like the woman I married. To say I was blindsided is an understatement. I had trusted her completely, or at least I thought I did. But the truth is, some signs were there. Little things I dismissed at the time, like her sudden obsession with her phone, the way she'd get defensive about her whereabouts, or how she'd always be too busy to spend time with me. It all unraveled in a way I never saw coming. One night, I was going through our joint bank account statements, just trying to get a clear picture of where our money was going. I noticed some strange transactions, large withdrawals from our savings account, a few payments to a company I'd never heard of, and some wire transfers to an account in her boss's name. I brushed it off at first, thinking maybe she was investing or handling some business stuff I didn't know about. But then I found a receipt tucked inside her purse, a hotel bill from a few weeks ago, with her and her boss, Mark, listed as the guests. The date was the same day she claimed she was working late at the office. That was my first real clue that something was off. But I didn't jump to conclusions. I decided to watch her, see if I could catch her in the act or find more evidence. A couple of days later, I noticed her phone kept buzzing late at night, and she would quickly hide it when I entered the room. I started checking her social media, her messages. Nothing really explicit at first, but enough to make my stomach turn. Then I caught her in a lie about a dinner she said she had with her boss. She told me it was just a business dinner, but I saw pictures on her phone of them at a fancy restaurant, holding hands, smiling like they were the only two people in the world. That's when I knew something was definitely going on. I felt sick, like I'd been punched in the gut. How could she do this to me? We had been married for 5 years with plans for a future, a house, a family. And here she was sneaking around, lying to my face and probably lying to everyone else too. I felt betrayed, furious, and deeply hurt. It was like my entire world was collapsing around me. I didn't confront her immediately. I needed to gather more evidence to be sure. But I knew deep down that I'd caught her cheating. The way she acted around her phone, the lies, the secret meetings, there was no way she wasn't having an affair. The worst part was realizing she might have been doing this while pretending to be the perfect wife. I felt so stupid for trusting her, for believing we had something real. Instead, she was playing me for a fool, and I had no idea how deep her deception went. In the meantime, I started digging into her finances more, trying to understand what her endgame was. I found out she'd been funneling money into her boss's account, over $200, $0 to be exact, and it all pointed to some kind of scheme. It turns out she wasn't just cheating on me. She was involved in a criminal plan to steal from our own estate. I couldn't believe it. All those years, her bitchy attitude, her lies about her job, her secret meetings, she was part of something way bigger than I thought. I was furious. Not just because she cheated, but because she was trying to pull off a scheme that could ruin us financially. And to top it all off, she's now threatening to sue me for half the inheritance, claiming I'm trying to ruin her life. I don't even know where that's coming from. I feel like I'm living in a nightmare I can't wake up from. How did I miss all the signs? How did I not see that my wife was capable of this level of deception? And now, I have to figure out what to do next, how to fight back, and how to protect what's left of my life after all this shit hit the fan. After I uncovered everything, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. My mind kept racing, trying to connect all the dots, trying to understand how my wife, Emily, who I thought was the love of my life, could have been lying and cheating behind my back. But underneath all that confusion was a deep, burning anger. Not just at her, but at myself for not seeing it earlier, for not noticing the signs, for trusting her blindly. I remember the night I decided to confront her. I sat her down in the living room. Her eyes were cold and her voice was sharp when she started lying again. She told me she was working late, that she had to close a deal, and that her relationship with her boss was strictly professional. She played it off as if I was overreacting, like I was being paranoid. She called me controlling, accused me of not trusting her, and then with a bitchy smirk she said I was just jealous because she had a better life than I did. That was the moment I saw the real Emily, the bitchy, manipulative side I'd tried to ignore for years. But I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore. I laid out the evidence, her secret hotel stay, the wire transfers, the photos. Her face flickered with surprise then. Anger, she denied everything, of course, said I was crazy, that I was reading too much into things, and that I was just jealous of her success. I told her I knew about the scheme, about the money, about her plans to steal from us. That's when she snapped. She started yelling, calling me paranoid, possessive, and threatened to sue me for half the inheritance if I tried to take her to court. It was like she was trying to turn the tables, make me feel guilty for catching her. I felt a mixture of rage and despair. How could she be so cold, so ruthless? I'd loved her, trusted her, and now I was faced with the fact that she was capable of destroying everything we built. Our house, our savings, our future. I knew I had to act fast, but I had no idea what the right move was. I was angry enough to want revenge, but I also knew I needed to protect myself legally and financially. I started calling lawyers and trying to understand what my options were. Meanwhile, Emily kept up her act, acting innocent when I pressed her, crying fake tears, claiming I was trying to ruin her life. The emotional toll was enormous. I felt betrayed, stupid, and even a little embarrassed that I hadn't seen it coming. How could I have missed all those signs? Was I really that blind? The worst part was knowing she was probably lying to everyone else, spinning her story about how I was the bad guy. I felt like I was losing my mind, wondering how someone I loved could turn into such a manipulative, dishonest person. And yet, beneath all the chaos, I knew I couldn't let her get away with it. I had to protect what was mine, our house, our estate, everything we'd accumulated. I started talking to my financial advisor, trying to figure out how much of our inheritance was at stake and what legal steps I could take. It was clear she was trying to make a grab for half of everything, claiming I was trying to cheat her out of her fair share. The audacity of it. She was the one involved in a criminal scheme, and now she was trying to turn it around on me. I honestly don't know how I got through those first few days after discovering her affair and her scheme. It's like my entire world was crashing down around me. I felt betrayed, angry, and deeply hurt. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity, like I finally saw her for who she really was. The woman I married was gone, replaced by someone who would lie, cheat, and manipulate to get what she wanted. And I had to decide whether to fight for my rights or just give up and walk away. Honestly, I was leaning toward the fight. I couldn't let her get away with this. Not after everything. The more I dug into her financial dealings, the more disgusted I became. It wasn't just about the affair or the hotel bill, although those were bad enough. It was the fact that she'd been plotting something much bigger behind my back. Over $200, $0 gone, transferred into her boss's account, all part of some scheme to drain our estate. She'd been sneaking around, lying, pretending to be the perfect wife while she was busy orchestrating her own kind of theft. And the worst part, she was trying to spin it all to make me look like the villain. I spent sleepless nights going over every piece of evidence I could find. I hired a private investigator to follow her, just to be sure. Turns out, she'd been meeting with Mark, her boss, in secret at places I never suspected. I found receipts for dinners, private meetings, and even a few nights she stayed out late without telling me where she was. I kept asking myself how I missed all this. How could I have been so blind? I thought I knew her, thought we had something real, but she was just playing me all along. One night I caught her in a lie that changed everything. She told me she was at her sister's house, visiting her niece. But I found text messages on her phone, flirty, suggestive messages between her and Mark, talking about getting away and making things work. I felt like I'd been punched again. My stomach sank. How long had this been going on? How deep had her scheme gone? It wasn't just an affair. It was part of an elaborate plan to steal from us. She'd been lying, cheating, and scheming for months. At that moment, I knew I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I confronted her. Again, this time with everything I'd uncovered. I told her I knew about her affair, about the scheme, about the money she'd stolen. Her face twisted into a sneer, and she started throwing accusations at me, calling me paranoid, possessive, controlling. She said I was just jealous of her success, that I was trying to keep her down. That's when she dropped the bomb. She threatened to sue me for half of the inheritance, claiming I was trying to cheat her out of her rightful share. It was like she was trying to turn the tables, make herself the victim. I was stunned, not just because of her threats, but because of the sheer audacity of her lies. She kept insisting she was innocent, that I was overreacting, that I didn't understand her, but I knew better. I knew she'd been lying to me from the start. It was hard to process all of it, the betrayal, the lies, the money stolen, and her manipulative attitude. I felt a mixture of rage, sadness, and helplessness. How could someone I loved turn into this? How did I not see the signs earlier? I had trusted her with everything, and now I was left with nothing but betrayal and a mountain of questions. I started to think about my next move. I couldn't just let her walk away with half of everything, especially after what she'd done. I spoke to lawyers, trying to understand the legal options. I wanted to protect what was mine, fight for the estate, and make sure she couldn't just take it all. Meanwhile, she kept up her act, pretending to be innocent, crying fake tears, and accusing me of trying to ruin her life. It was exhausting. I felt like I was fighting a losing battle, but I knew I couldn't give up. I had to stand my ground. Deep down, I was angry at myself for trusting her so blindly, for not seeing the signs earlier. It's like I'd been living a lie, and now I was trying to piece everything back together. The emotional toll was overwhelming. Anger, betrayal, sadness, frustration. I kept asking myself how someone I'd loved could turn into such a manipulative, dishonest person. But I also realized I had to accept that I couldn't change her, only protect myself and my future. I was determined to fight for what was rightfully mine, no matter how difficult it became. The more I pressed forward with my investigation, the clearer it became that Emily was not just a wife who had cheated. She was a con artist, a manipulator, and a thief. I found bank statements, emails, and even recorded her talking to her boss Mark about plans that sounded more like a scheme to split our estate than a legitimate business deal. Every new piece of evidence made my blood boil. I trusted her with everything, our savings, our future, and she'd been planning this all along. I decided I needed to get legal advice fast. I met with a lawyer who specialized in family law and financial disputes. He explained that, based on what I'd uncovered, I had a solid case to challenge her claim for half the inheritance, especially since she was involved in criminal activity that directly impacted our assets. But the lawyer warned me, Emily was cunning. She'd probably try to spin her story, play the victim, and use her charm to manipulate the situation in her favor. Meanwhile, Emily kept up her act. She would cry, say she was sorry, and claim she was under so much stress. But I saw through it. She was just trying to distract me from the real issue. Her bitchy attitude was still there, always blaming me for everything, gaslighting me into feeling like I was overreacting or being too controlling. She kept insisting she was the victim, that I was trying to ruin her reputation and take everything away from her. I couldn't believe the audacity. She was the one involved in a criminal scheme, and now she was trying to manipulate her way out of it. One night I caught her sneaking her phone into the bedroom again. I looked over her shoulder and saw a series of texts between her and Mark, talking about covering their tracks and making sure the money was safe. My stomach clenched. She had been actively trying to hide her dealings, even from me. I felt sick at the thought of how much she'd lied, how far she'd gone to cover her tracks. That was the moment I knew I had to do something drastic. I couldn't just sit back and let her take everything she wanted. I decided to gather all my evidence, record our conversations from that point on, and prepare for a legal battle to protect my rights. I also started documenting her behavior, her lies, her manipulations, her threats. I wanted to have everything on record in case she decided to escalate things further. But even with all this chaos, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. I'd loved her, trusted her, and now I realized she'd been playing me from the start. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone who could lie, cheat, and scheme without remorse. The emotional pain was intense. I'd never felt so lost, so angry, so betrayed. and I knew that no matter what happened next, my life would never be the same. I'd been blindsided by her bitchy, manipulative side, and I'd have to fight to reclaim what was left of my dignity and my estate. After I collected enough evidence to piece together the full scope of her scheme, I knew I had to act quickly. I couldn't just let Emily keep spinning her web of lies and trying to claim half of everything we had, especially since she was actively involved in criminal activity. I started working closely with my lawyer, preparing a detailed case to contest her claim for the inheritance. She kept up her fake tears, her bitchy attitude, and her manipulative tactics, but I refused to be swayed. I knew what she was capable of, and I had to stay firm. One of the most shocking moments came when I confronted her with the evidence of the wire transfers and the hotel receipts. Her reaction was classic Emily. She immediately flipped the script, turning the blame onto me. She accused me of snooping, of trying to ruin her, and even claimed I was jealous of her success. She insisted she was innocent, even though the proof was staring her in the face. It was frustrating to see her lie so effortlessly, like she didn't even care about the truth anymore. I felt a mix of fury and helplessness. How could she be so cold, so calculated? In the days that followed, I realized I couldn't keep handling this on my own. I hired a private investigator to keep tabs on her, just to be sure she wasn't planning anything further. I also started documenting every interaction, every lie, every manipulative comment she made. I needed to have a solid record if this went to court. Meanwhile, she continued her act, pretending to be the victim, crying about how I was trying to destroy her life, and threatening to sue me for defamation if I exposed her. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt betrayed, angry, and exhausted. Every time I looked at her, I saw the woman I thought I married, but also the cold, calculating liar she'd become. It was like losing her twice, once the wife I loved, and now the person she revealed herself to be. I kept asking myself how I'd missed all the signs, how I'd been so blind. But I knew I couldn't dwell on that. I had to focus on protecting myself and my assets. I decided to file for a legal separation, just to buy myself some time and to start the process of disentangling everything. I also began the process of valuing our estate with an independent appraiser, making sure I had a clear picture of what was at stake. I knew Emily would try to fight me all the way, but I was determined to stand my ground. I couldn't let her get away with it, not after she'd betrayed me so badly. The plan was to confront her. In court, expose her lies and prove that she was involved in the scheme to steal from us. Throughout this ordeal, I've learned a lot about trust, betrayal, and the importance of protecting yourself. I thought I knew my wife, but I was wrong. I also realized that sometimes the people you love can turn into the biggest enemies if you're not careful. I don't know exactly how this will end, but I do know that I won't back down. I will fight for what's mine, for my future, and for the truth. It's been a brutal lesson, but I refuse to let her win. She's not going to destroy everything I've worked for, not without a fight. Looking back now, I realize how much this whole nightmare has changed me. I never thought I'd be the guy standing here, having gone through betrayal on this level, by someone I loved, trusted, and built a life with. The pain was sharp, the anger intense, but somehow I've found a way to come out the other side a little stronger. I learned that trust isn't something to take for granted, and that beneath the surface, people can hide their true intentions until it's too late. The legal battle is still ongoing, but I've managed to expose enough of her scheme to prevent her from claiming half of our estate. The court saw through her manipulations, her lies, and her criminal involvement. Emily's threats to sue me for defamation fell flat. There's plenty of evidence to support my side, and I made sure to document everything. In the end, she didn't get the money she was after, and I've started rebuilding my life from scratch. It's not easy, and I still feel the sting of betrayal every day, but I'm learning to move forward. One thing I've realized is that I should have listened to my gut long before I uncovered all this. I ignored the red flags, dismissed her bitchy attitude, and convinced myself that she was just stressed or busy. But the truth was, she was hiding a lot more than I ever imagined. Now I see the signs clearly, and I advise anyone in a similar situation, pay attention to the small things. Trust your instincts and don't be afraid to dig deep if something feels off. As for Emily, she's facing the consequences of her actions. The court ordered her to repay the stolen money, and her reputation is pretty much ruined. She tried to manipulate her way out of everything, but the truth always comes out in the end. I don't hate her. I just feel a profound sense of relief that I finally see her for who she really is. I've learned that revenge isn't about getting even. It's about protecting yourself and your future from those who would do you harm. This experience has taught me resilience and the importance of standing up for yourself. I'm still healing, still trying to trust again, but I know I'll be okay. I've come to accept that some people aren't who they pretend to be, and sometimes you have to cut your losses and walk away. I've also learned that you can survive betrayal, that you can rebuild from the ashes, and that sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones that teach you the most. So, to anyone reading this who's going through something similar, trust yourself, stay vigilant, and never let anyone manipulate or steal from you. Your life is worth more than their lies and schemes. Keep fighting, stay strong, and remember, the truth always finds a way to come out.